for Code Savvy and Technovation Girls, Minnesota. My name is Valerie Lockhart. I'm the Executive Director of Code Savvy. And also, so Code Savvy is the nonprofit that runs the Technovation Challenge in Minnesota. So we are going to be talking today about some tips and tricks and best practices for editing your videos. We'll talk a little bit about capturing, depending on where you all are at. You might be still in that process, but we'll mainly spend our time talking about editing. We're going to talk about things in general that will apply to most editing software, but we will talk about some specifics. I know in the registration, it sounded like a lot of you were using iMovie. Unfortunately, I brought the wrong computer with me today and I don't have iMovie on this laptop, but the things that I will show you will be applicable in iMovie. So I will point things out that are specific that will relate to that, but we'll talk about a lot of different platforms and how you can do the things that you need to do in those platforms. So to get started, we'll start off just kind of by talking a little bit about where you can find some things. So in the Technovation curricula, you will see, I think it's weeks 8, 9, and 10, will have information about the editing and about the video, the requirements. A lot of that stuff we went through during Pitchapalooza, because a good way to start thinking about your pitch and that live pitch that you're going to do is to start writing scripts. And so our last workshop was Pitchapalooza, where we talked about how to start writing that great script, how to start getting pieces together and start thinking about the visuals that you want to use for what you're going to be saying in the videos. And so this is an extension of that session. So just as a refresher, you can find this information in the curricula. We talked a little bit about capturing your video and to do as much of your editing in the camera as you can. There's nothing wrong with using a phone to do your recording. These are like some of the best cameras that we have just in our pockets all the time. The only thing I will say is if you are going to use your your phone as a camera, make sure that you're shooting this way instead of this way. So I know for a lot of TikTok videos and for, Snapchats and stuff, you're up and down, but you really want to have your phone facing horizontally. So that way it'll look better when you upload it to YouTube or to Vimeo. You'll have they're called aspect ratio, and it fits the screen better. So if you've ever worked on video before, you might notice like sometimes there's like black bars around to fill in the gaps. That's usually because somebody has filmed like this versus like that. So that's just a really quick tip on using your phone for recording. These we went over during Pitchapalooza, but I'll recap really fast. 3-point lighting. You have kind of your key light, which is the main light source that you're using. You always want to have some light source in the back. And then you can have a third light, which is called the fill light, which kind of it takes away those shadows and the contrast that might happen from having one really extreme light source. So the best way to shoot, if you can, is to do it outside. Natural sunlight is great. It doesn't work great as a backlight. You don't want to have like somebody sitting in front of a bright window and then try to film them. It won't work very well. So if you can have the main strongest light coming from the front, that's always helpful. The other thing to talk about is another 3. It's the rule of thirds. So when you're looking through your phone, if you imagine this grid across the screen, it gives it, what do you call it? Like composition. The composition looks nicer if you line your item or your focus onto where the lines intersect. So you'll notice in the picture on the screen, there's a girl sitting at a piano. And if we were going to have her just right in the middle, it would be kind of a boring shot. But because we've offset her a little bit and we've lined her up with the lines where they intersect, it creates a better composition of the image or the video. And it gives our eyes something more appealing to look at. You'll notice in the horizon with the ocean, it also, if you're lining things up and kind of breaking them into those third regions, that is also super helpful for making a good composition. This will also be helpful as you get into captioning your videos. So we'll talk a little bit about something called lower thirds, and that is usually where your subtitles run across the bottom. And that is actually that bottom row on the rule of thirds. So all of our text will go into that bottom row. So just a little way to look at when you're shooting things, how to line things up, and just keep in mind, you might want to move your shot or change it a little bit depending on how it lines up with those imaginary lines on the camera. The best way to have a good video is to have good audio. You can have pretty crappy video visuals, but if the audio is really good, it makes a lot of difference. The opposite is true of that. So you could have the most beautiful video in the world, but if you have bad audio, it's not going to be the best video in the world. So audio is very important. You'll notice I don't know if you can hear it because there's probably noise canceling on in Zoom. But there's like a fan running where I'm at. That's not the best audio situation. If you're going to be recording video, you want to make sure it's in a quieter place. Turn off anything that has buzzing or notifications. You'll want to use headphones so you can listen back. What I try to do is I'll record a little bit and then I'll listen back to that couple of seconds of recording to see how it sounds. There are some new tools in AI in the video editors that can take out that background noise, but it's best if you don't give it a lot to start with. So again, in that idea of like editing in the camera as much as possible, you want to create situations where you're setting things up so that they will be good right out of the gate, and you won't have to do a ton of editing and a ton of playing around with things. Because the more you have to edit, the more things can get screwed up, and the longer it takes and the more frustrating it is. So it really helps to set yourself up right from the beginning with a really good plan for recording and making sure it's a good environment for that. Another thing that I tend to do sometimes, if it's a really important audio feed that I want to get, like if it's your pitch or something that you really need to have crisp audio, I'll actually use two phones. So I'll use one phone for the video and have the audio recording on that with the video, or I'll take another phone and set it up maybe closer, or because if you're far away from what you're shooting, the audio has to travel. So you can put a phone closer to the person that you're recording and have that just recording audio. And so then what you want to do is once you start recording on both devices, you clap your hands really loud, even a couple of times, just so you have a signal that you can line up in the editing. And we'll talk about a little bit more about how that works when we get into our editing session. But really, it's helpful when you are able to see the sound waves in the video or in the clips, you can line those up because it's like the loudest thing that happens is that clap. And so once you get those lined up, the rest of your audio should be super close, or if not right on when it lines up. So that's a little trick that I have for using multiple audio sources. So now we'll get into editing. And this is once you've captured all of your video, you've recorded everybody giving their part of the pitch that they want. You've had a script, you've written that out. You know who's going to say what and what parts you want to talk about and how you're going to highlight the project that you're making. the technical components, you know what you're going to say and you know what to talk about. Once you have all those things recorded, now it's time to start editing. So again, I know a lot of you mentioned that you have access to iMovie, but there are a ton of different video editors out there on the market. A lot of them are free, or gratis, I should say. They're not necessarily free, but they will let you use them. Usually the trade-off is that you may have to include some kind of watermark on the video, or they may charge for additional features, but the real simple editing is for no charge. So there's a bunch of different things on the market. I have found a couple that I like that we'll talk about. But iMovie, if you have access to that, is complimentary on the Mac usually. And so that one is a great program to use. It's very straightforward and easy. There's one that we're going to be using today called Veed, V-E-E-D. And that one is similar to iMovie in the way it's set up. And so the things that I'm showing you will be translatable to iMovie. I'm going to show you a couple of different techniques and a couple of different platforms. Yep, Aditi just put in the chat that you can also download iMovie on iPad, which if that is what you're using to shoot your videos, it's super perfect because you can do it all right there. So you can just shoot your video with your iPad and then download iMovie on the iPad, and you can use that to do all your editing and export it, and you're done. So when you start transferring files around, it can get really complicated, but doing it on the iPad is certainly a way to make that easier. You can also do it on phones, like iMovie is on an iPhone. It gets a little harder on the phone just because it's so small, and the screen is so tiny, and it gets hard to kind of see things and move them precisely in the iPhone, but it can be done if you absolutely need to. So as we'll skip around a little bit, but you will need some kind of editing app. You will need some kind of app that can do subtitles. So in iMovie, you can add subtitles, you can upload your script and it can type it out on the screen. If you're using something like Adobe Premiere, they can actually auto-generate. So it'll watch your video and it will auto-generate those subtitles, and then you can just go in and edit and fix them. Or there's an app called Add Subtitles, and it's a free app for the iPhone and the iPad that will actually do that same thing. So because that's a prerequisite for your video for Technovation, keeping that in mind that you're going to need subtitles on your videos is super important. And that's why having that script ahead of time that you're going by and using to plan it out is very helpful, because then you can just upload that script and you can make sure that the subtitles match exactly what's being said. So I mentioned earlier that there's a free editing tool online called Veed.io, and that is pretty similar to iMovie. So I'm going to be showing you things in that. So we'll take a look at that. But what we're going to do is relevant to any platform that you might be using for editing. So you want to make sure that you have all of your files in one place. Google Drive is a really good option for that, just keeping everything together. That way, if members of your team are recording things and you all need one place to submit them and work on them, Google Drive is a really great collaborative folder that you can use to do that. You might need to transfer images or videos from your phone to the Google Drive, and that's really easy with Google Drive. You could just open the app on your phone, upload the videos to that, and then someone on a computer can access them later. So it's really nice to be able to transfer things between each other using that. There's also another platform called WeTransfer, which is also free, but it does it's only there for a limited time. So you have to make sure that you tell each other that you're uploading things and get it downloaded quickly, or else I think it deletes in a week. So Google Drive is kind of there forever. WeTransfer tends to expire. You want to make sure you have your storyboard so you know exactly what video parts you want to put together and how you want to sequence it and what algorithm you're going to use to tell your story. You're going to want to arrange those files in the order that goes along with your storyboard on the timeline. We'll take a look at that in just a second. You'll want to have that additional audio track or music track if you want music behind it. You're going to want all of your files in one place so that they're easy to pull and you know exactly what they are. What's really easy to do, or better to do, I will say, is to label them in the files according to the sequence that you want them. So that way we see all the files there and you won't have to guess which one's which. You'll just know that they go in this order. So you could label them with numbers or with letters or pitch video, 2024-1, whatever you want to name them so that you know what sequence they go in. That'll be a good way to start. And then once you get all of your files into the editor, that's when you start making your edits for any of the extras or the mistakes. You'll want to cut off the beginnings and the ends of video when you're not quite ready, but you've already hit record and you might say, before you start. You want to make sure that you are ready to edit those out. You'll want to move things around. This is what we'll go through and I'll show you. And then lastly, will be transitions. So there's a few different options for transitions. It's really up to you how creative you want to get. Very commonly, particularly on YouTube videos, you'll see what they call a jump cut, where they just cut it and there's no transition. It just goes right to the next without any fading in or any kind of blur or any like fade to black and then come back. It just jump cuts and you'll see like the person might be talking and then all of a sudden they're in a different spot and they're talking over here. It'll look kind of like that, but it's very common and we're so used to it from watching YouTube videos that we just see it naturally now. But that's a very common transition to use. And it really depends on what kind of feel or look you want your video to have. So in these slides, which you should all have links to, there is a walkthrough video. So it's another tutorial that you can, it's a very in-depth tutorial that we did before that you can watch and learn from. So I won't go into all of that, but I'll show you a little bit, some examples. So we have, I'm going to pull up Veed, which is veed.io. And this is, I uploaded, just to save time a little bit, I uploaded 2 different clips that I had from an orchestra performance that I live streamed the other day. So I'm going to hit play on this just so you can hear a little bit of the audio and you'll know exactly what we're working with. Okay, so you'll notice that there's no transition between those 2 video clips. Oh, is the audio not playing for you guys? Sorry. Let me try that again. I'm going to stop my sharing and then make sure I'm sharing with video or with audio, sorry. Share sound, stereo. Let's share that again. All right, we're going to try it one more time and see if you can hear this. Give me a thumbs up or a note in the chat if you can't.
If you are interested in becoming a sponsor for the annual Terrace concert and for Jacques Spinelli, please come speak to me.
Thank you.
Okay,
so as I was saying, you'll notice that there's kind of a jump between those two clips. So there's no transition. It's like this video ends and then this one starts right away. So that's what a jump cut is. We'll talk a little bit about other, so in Veed, in iMovie, you'll see usually a section that's all of the choices for transitions. So if I click on that, you'll have some very similar ones, or common ones, I should say. There's a dissolve. So if I put this in between the two, make sure. It should. Nope, hold on. Okay, it's just putting if I can, we'll try and move them around. So I should explain what I'm doing. So you'll see I can pull this clip. I can pull it behind. I could put it above, so it would transfer. So we're watching one clip.
If you are interested in becoming a sponsor.
And then we hear the audio from the second clip. So when you have them layered, the video is only going to be whatever's on the top. That's what you're going to see. But the audio for everything below it will still play. So that's really helpful if you're doing like walkthroughs or you're talking about the app and maybe the video that you're showing is you scrolling through the app. So you could have a video with audio on the bottom of you talking through the app. And then you could have a screen shared video, like a screen capture of you walking through the or scrolling through the app while you're talking. So there's ways that you can layer videos and put them together in unique ways. But that's the top one is always going to be what shows on the video the most. So I'm going to move these again. We'll move those around. And then here, I'm going to put the dissolve transition. So you'll see it changes from this line to this little hourglass kind of symbol. So now when I play from one clip to the next, you see it dissolves. So it kind of like slow motion morphs between one video and the other. There's other options like fade to black if you wanted to have a black screen in between the two clips. There's this cross blur, which probably will be similar to the dissolve, but we'll see what it looks like. So you'll notice it's very, very faint, but it just kind of like blurs into the next one. So there's a bunch of different transitions that you can use. And each platform is going to have some different ones and some that are similar. There's some, fun like splice and like zoom in. There's some different ones that different platforms have. So you can really play with that and make it your own and figure out what you like. But that's kind of how you link those two or your multiple video clips together. Another thing you want to think about is maybe some kind of music. So as you're showing, maybe somebody's scrolling through the app or the AI, talking about the AI project, if you want to have some kind of music playing in the background, that can really change the mood of your video. And there are some free music, they're called royalty-free music sites, like Purple Planet and Free Music Archive. You can go through and you can play the links, play the audio clips, decide what kind of sounds the way you might like it, and then you can download those and use them. And because this is kind of for educational purposes, you don't need to, but you should kind of give credit to where you found it. So if it's in your video somewhere, or maybe in the notes that when you upload it to YouTube, if you just put a note in the description that says, downloaded this song from purpleplanet.com. Some way to notate where you found that music gives it what's called attribution. You don't have to pay for it, but it's best practice to give credit to the person that created it and where you found it. There are some sites though that you cannot use the music for free. So just make sure that you're pulling it from a place that says royalty free. And then once you have everything laid out, let's go back to bead. Actually, I'm going to show you a little bit. We'll jump around a little bit, but I'm going to show you a little bit about Canva, because Canva is another platform where you can do video. It's a little bit different, but it's very similar. So I created this AI video in a platform called Pika, P-I-K-A. And I asked it to give me 2 people dancing underneath the Northern Lights. And so this is the 3-second clip that it came up with. So I'll just rewind this and play this really quick. So it's just 3 seconds of video. So if I wanted to have it be longer than that in Canva, Canva does this really cool thing where when you put the video clip in, you can actually drag it to be longer or shorter as you need it to be. So I could do 8 seconds, I could do 6 seconds, and I'll do 7. And what it will do is it will, you'll see this little black bar goes across, that's your timeline. So you can start it from the beginning and play it. And what it will do is it'll take that 3-second clip that I uploaded and it will actually loop it 2.5 times so that you can see it for that full 7 seconds. So even though the clip is only 3 seconds, it'll automatically loop. And I think 8 seconds might be the length that Canva lets you do that. But you can also pull in other clips. So in here, I've uploaded a few other clips that we've used for different projects in Canva. So you can just pull that down and then it gets, you'll see just like that other on Veed, you have your timeline down here and you have your multiple clips. And so you can also do transitions, the same kinds of things that you can do on iMovie. You can do those in Canva, but you can also you can clip here. Let's say, actually, let's go back to Veed and I'll show you. This talking video, there's parts in here that I really just don't want to be in there. So I'm just gonna arbitrarily pick, but when you're doing your video, you'll know like if there's things you want to cut out, or maybe you messed up a sentence and you want to go back and chop that out. So this process is very similar in all of the platforms. So we'll just move this little timeline to the spot where we want it to be. I'm going to hit play.
Deductible donation to our clear donation box in the lobby.
Okay, so I'm going to pretend that I want to try to cut that section out. So what I'll do is I'll click on it. And then in Veed and in iMovie, you'll have this little split option. And that sometimes it'll say split clip at region head or something about splitting the clip at the point. So you want to click on that, and that basically creates 2 different video clips. So now we've taken this one clip and we've split it into 2. And so then what I would do is go to the end where I was.
To our clear donation box in the lobby.
Okay, so that's where I want to end. That's the end of the clip that I want to remove. So now I'm going to also split it again where that timeline is. So now we have the clip. We have this tiny little section that I want to get rid of. And we have the rest of the clip. So now I can just take this and hit delete and it blows it out of there. In some of them, you have to like right click and delete, or some of them you have to go and click on delete. It's different on a lot of different platforms, but most platforms you should be able to just highlight the section you want to erase, hit delete, and it should go. And then you can take the clip, the rest of the clip, and move it back to the section that you cut it from. So now it should have another jump cut. So now we have a jump to the next section of her talking. So that process is very similar no matter what platform you're using. Canva works pretty much the same way. I believe if we go here, we might have to. I've got to remember how to do it in here. I think, okay, so you hit Control and your mouse, or if you're clicking on a keyboard, and then it'll say split page. So that's what we would use. And again, it creates little clips. So now we have, instead of having the 23-second video, we have, or 22-second video, we have an 8-section and we have a 13-second. So now it's split into those two. I could decide what parts of those I want to keep. I could take out the other chunks. So like, let's say we want to get rid of this chunk right here. I could split it again. Sorry, I clicked on it too many times. Control click. We're going to split that again. And now with this one, I just delete it. And now we have 5 seconds and 13 seconds. So depending on what you want, this is why I said it's better to shoot and edit things in the camera than relying on doing it after the fact, because it can get really messy as you're kind of chopping things up and splicing them back together. It can be a little confusing sometimes. And so getting things as prepped and ready before you shoot as you can makes this process a whole lot easier. So before we go much further into captioning and stuff, I want to see if there are any questions on any of this, mostly about the timeline or how to drag clips around or transitions. Is there any questions about any of that, or things that have come up for you all so far in your projects that you're worried about or that you'd like a little more clarity on? You can either come off mute or you can throw it in the chat if you want to. In the chat, will you let me know, are you even at that point? Have you started filming yet? Do you have clips yet for any of your pitch or technical videos? Okay, so there's a good question in the chat. The video files seem to be getting really big, which they do, and they're very hard to start throwing around and manipulating once they're that big. There is something you can do called compression. What is not good about compressing them is that it does take the quality down. And so if you can manage to work with those bigger files, it's better because it will keep it at that high quality. This is sometimes where it's really helpful to have like an external hard drive or something, even a thumb drive that you're using that has a lot of memory, because it can get really overwhelming for your machine to be working with such big files. So what I do is I tend to use SD cards and then like an SD card reader, or even just like an external hard drive that plugs right into my computer. And I keep the files there because it can hold a lot more. But if you do need to compress them, there are ways to do that. Like you can upload it to iMovie and you can export it as a smaller resolution. So typically, like when you shoot a video with your phone, it's going to be in 1080 p, which is it's 1080 pixels per the screen. And so that is called HD video. You can compress it down to 720, which is also HD, but not as vivid, like not as good quality. I wouldn't go much smaller than that, or else it will be kind of crappy quality on when you upload it to YouTube. But you can export your videos as 720 and they will still look really good on YouTube and Vimeo. So super good question. So if you're using Canva, you can, I don't believe it watermarks it. I think I haven't had the free version in a long time because we have a paid subscription for Canva and that one does not have a watermark. So it may be worth it, just even if it's like 1 month that you pay for the Canva. I don't think it has a watermark on the free version, but if it does, it might be worth the $12 just to pay it to get 1 month of time that you could export things without that. But even if you have a watermark on any of your videos, still okay. Because it's not about the watermark, it's about your pitch and it's about the visuals that you're using to show it off. And it's about those things versus the video quality or even like having a watermark or whatever. So it's not a huge deal, but if it bugs you, it might be worth paying for the $12 to get it to not, if it has it. All right, let's see. So your team doesn't have any footage yet because they're still developing, which is perfectly great. I everybody's at different times and different setups. So it's very hard, for time wise to know where everybody's at. But the fact that you haven't shot anything is totally okay. Hopefully this will help you kind of have a better idea as you go into shooting some of those videos. And the slides that I shared that go along with this, they have all the tutorials. They talk about way more in depth the stuff that we're going through today. So there's a lot of information. That said, we are also always available. So like if you start getting into shooting the video and editing and those things in a couple of weeks when you're, getting closer to submission, you can always come to a Code Explorers session and ask questions. If you need computers to do some of this editing, in the in-person Code Explorer sessions at Minneapolis College, we have a bunch of computers that you can use that have iMovie on them. We'll just need to know so we can get that room set up. But there's lots of options and we can always help you go through this stuff once you get there. So please don't ever feel like you're alone in this. Like we have lots of help available. And I'm always willing to help walk through stuff and help with ideas even. So I'm super glad that you're here and just starting to think about it at least while you're developing your app. All right. So we're going to transition now a little bit. We're going to go and talk about captioning, which is not what I just wanted to click on. There we go. Let's see. So like I said, one of the prerequisites for the videos for Technovation is that you have captions. In iMovie, you can upload your script. Once you've got, I should say this, get your video completely done. Make sure it's edited exactly how you want it. Make sure that all of your clips are moved and transitions are done and you've got your background music and you've got everything lined up on the timeline exactly the way that you want it. Then you want to worry about the captions, because if you start messing with that early, you might actually edit something out and change it and then the captions are all wrong. The timing of the captions is very important. The point of captions is that people who are hard of hearing or deaf, they can read along with the video. I use captions because sometimes people are speaking fast and I might not catch what they say. I always have it on TV because like sometimes they're mumbling and I don't really understand what they're saying. So it's really helpful for me to read those. And so the concept of captions is something that while it's designed for accessibility and for deaf people, it's very helpful for everybody. And so it's something that Technovation says we have to have on all of our tech and our pitch videos. So we're going to have to do that. So like I said, in iMovie, you can upload your script and it will take that and it will apply it and it will kind of place it where it thinks it should be in the video. There always is going to need to be some editing that happens after the fact. I'll show you, I don't have an example because I forgot, I don't have my iMovie, but when you do captions, when you have them auto generate or you upload the script and it auto lays it out, there can be words that it misunderstands, or it's listening to the person speaking and it might put the wrong captions in places. So what the most important part of it is listening as you go through and making those adjustments as it happens. So I'm going to show you just here in Veed. We'll go to subtitles. And so Veed gives you the option to automatically generate the captions or to even translate it into a different language. And so, or you can upload a subtitle file. Those are usually called VTT files. And so it's not just like a regular Word document. It's a special type of file that you have to upload. You can convert a Word document to that type of file so that it can read it, but it's basically like time transcripts. So it's a timed version of your script. Or if you don't have a script that you want to upload, you don't want to trust the robots to like automatically generate your subtitles, you can also manually transcript. Takes longer, but it's actually like more precise and like you can get in there and type and like make sure that it's very precise right out of the get-go. So really up to you how you want to do that. Most of the platforms will let you do them multiple ways. Sometimes I like to do the manual transcription, but most of the time I just have it auto transcribe and then I go in and edit and fix the places where it's wrong. So I'm going to click on auto just to, let's see, I want to just do it on this one because that's the only one that has, this clip is the only one that has any audio. So then it's asking me what language I want it, or it's being spoken, it's English. And I'm going to just create subtitles. And you'll notice, this is the free version of Veed.io. You get 30 minutes per month that you can transcribe for free. So both of your pitch videos are under 3 minutes, right? So the most you're going to be editing is about 6 minutes. You should be able to get all of your captioning done in this version for no cost. So I'm going to click create, and then it's going to take a minute. It tells us that we should go get a snack, which we won't do right now, but you could. So once that is done, then we will see how accurate it really is. All right, so you'll see here there's time in and time out. And so that is the seconds down to the milliseconds where she is speaking those words. And so I'm going to just hit play, and we're going to see how accurate it really is for this transcription. So hit play.
If you are interested in becoming a sponsor for the annual Terrace concert and for Jacques Spinelli, please come speak to me. And anyone can be a community hero.
Okay, so you'll notice that it says anyone can be a community bureau. But as we were listening to her, it was very clear that she said community hero. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and click in here. And you'll also notice that it says right here, it's highlighted in red, and it says it's a low confidence word. So the AI heard what it thought was bureau, but it's not quite sure. And so it put it in there, but it's like, this might not be right. So it'll highlight those things to make it easier for us to go in and say, no, it wasn't bureau. It was supposed to be hero. So we can just delete that, type in that. And now if I click back up here and I hit play again.
Jacques Spinelli, please come speak to me. And anyone can be a community hero.
So now the caption is corrected. And so you can go through the whole thing here and make the edits that you need to, make sure it lines up with the timing correctly. You can change all of those things right there in the field. Again, every platform is going to have something similar to this, and it will have the same or similar layout on how you can edit and make sure that that lines up. The other thing that I would say for subtitles is just to make sure that they are in that lower third. So like we talked about a little bit earlier, where we were talking about the rule of thirds, and you imagine those lines on the screen, keeping them in those bottom 3 boxes is the best practice for where to put your subtitles. That's where they're automatically going to generate on most platforms. And it's just where our eyes naturally want to go. The other thing is you can sometimes, I don't see it in Veed, but you can sometimes change how dark or light they are. Cause like right now, this video is very, it's very light and it's kind of hard to see the subtitles. So like in iMovie, you can change the font, you can change the color of the text, you can change the size, you can make it bigger or smaller. So you can really play around with the looks of those, but just make sure that they are there for accessibility and to make sure that you don't lose any points on either of your videos. All right, so if we go back here, I think there's just a couple of other things I want to touch on, and then I really want to open it up for questions and if there's anything specific that we can help you with. There's a couple of tools that are super helpful for the Technovation pitch and technical videos. So being able to do a screen capture is a really important thing because then you can show off your app while you're recording and talking about it. You could also record the screen capture and do your audio separately and then match them up in the editor. It's really up to you how you want to do it, but there is a tool called Loom, which is a free recording software that you can use to record yourself and your scroll through a website or through an app. And you can record just the screen, you can share with your team, you can do a lot of things with that tool. So that one's a really good one for kind of this kind of presentation. You can also use Zoom for this thing as well. So you could share your screen on Zoom or on Google Meet. You could just make sure that you have the speaker mode on the recording. You can record there, use the Zoom video. There's no reason you don't have to have a fancy camera. You can literally just do it on a Zoom call and record it. Or Google Meet if you have that, or your phone. So you have lots of different options on how you can record stuff. We talked a little bit about this earlier, but using Google Drive is super helpful because you can access video files from your phone or your iPad or your laptop. You can, transfer things. You can collaborate with your team. There's a lot of different ways that you can use that. Oh, the note on here, if you are going to use Zoom, remember that you should have a good internet connection so you're not choppy. So make sure it's a strong internet connection and that you do have a good webcam and microphone. If you're using an iPad or a MacBook, they have pretty good cameras built in, but some of the other laptops and things don't have great cameras. So if you can get an external camera, that is sometimes better. Or just use your phone. And then the curricula, again, way more in depth about what's needed in those videos. We can look really quick. just to cover our bases. But they go through kind of recording techniques, what volume you should have things at, using light. So there's a ton of information around here. They have some tips about recording your screen. There's QuickTime Player, some different tools that you can use to do that. I think it's in the next week. Go to week 10. And this is where it starts to talk about editing. So there's even more information in there. And then how to upload your videos. So the last thing I want to talk about is this piece of it. You need to have either a YouTube or a Vimeo link of your video. So once you're finished making all your edits, you've added all of your background music, you've added all of your images and your fade-ins and your whatever transitions, your titles, your subtitles, then you want to export that video as an MP4. So .mp4 is a good format to upload to YouTube or Vimeo. Sometimes with iMovie, it'll come out as a .mov file, which is also okay. But if you can do it as an MP4, it's way more translatable to different platforms. So the .mov files will sometimes have issues on some players, but an MP4 is pretty much universally able to be played on a video player. So if you can do an MP4, do that. Upload it. You'll want to upload it to YouTube, or Vimeo, and you'll want to make sure that they are unlisted or public and not just private, because if you have them on private, nobody but you is going to be able to see them. So you want to make sure that they're either unlisted, so somebody has to have the link to find them, or they're public, and so if they go to your channel, they're listed right there and they can find them easily. So make sure that those are the settings that you use. And also, you'll want to you'll need those links when you do your full submission on April 24th. So those are really important. The last thing I'll say about that is that you want to give yourself some time. So even though it's a 3-minute video, it might take 20 to 30 minutes for it to actually upload and finish processing. And so you want to start that process earlier than later. So don't wait until the last minute to do your video submissions or to put them up on YouTube. Make sure maybe a couple days ahead of time, you have those videos uploaded, you have the link ready to go, and that they are ready to be put into your submission on the Technovation platform. That process also can take a long time. And so starting that as early as you can, as you start getting the pieces together for your final submission, just start uploading them. There's no penalization or no problem with you starting to upload things even now. So if you have components of your submission that are finished, go ahead and start uploading those so that you don't get to April 24th and all of a sudden it's not working, or it's taking too long, or things, are your computer is being slow, or the internet is down that day. Whatever, all these technical things can happen. And you want to make sure that you're just kind of prepared for that. And so starting the submission process early, getting things in as you finish them, and as, not just waiting to the last minute, is super important. Let's see what else. I think that's really it for on the platform or in the Technovation curriculum. So I think, again, if these slides you should have copies of. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them now if you want to walk through things. I know a couple of you said you're not really at that point yet, but just know that we're here. If you ever want to come to one of the Code Explorer sessions and get some extra help, just let us know. We do those in person and virtual. So our in-person sessions are at Minneapolis College, and virtually we can meet with you. I think it's a couple hours before that. that we do our virtual session. So everything will be on the Code Savvy website. So if you just go to codesavvy.org and you look on under the for students, there'll be the Code Explorers link. And this should have all of the information. So our next session is going to be April 6th. There's going to be a virtual session between 10 and noon, or an in-person session at Minneapolis College from 1:30 to 3:30. And so either of those, any of those sessions between the 6th, the 13th, or the 20th, if you need any help with your video or any part of the submission process, please let us know and please show up to one of those sessions and we will have mentors there to help you and your mentors through whatever questions you might have.